So, hello, good afternoon. Thank you very much for the opportunity to take part in this OneQuantum Africa event, and thank you very much to Farai for inviting me. So the topic of my talk is a little bit an overview of the global quantum technology ecosystem, and in particular keeping an eye of what's happening in Africa. Let me start. Sorry, what's going on? Okay. Let me start by looking at, you probably heard similar talks a million times, but if there are several studies and publications and opinions of many people that claim that these are probably four of the directions in which quantum technology looks very promising. Yeah, chemistry and the pharma industry, industrial applications like logistics and optimization problems. Then, of course, machine learning is in everybody's mind these days, cybersecurity, and of course, there's a keen interest from the financial sector for applications in the simulations of risk analysis and things like that. I'm very grateful, sorry, I need to mention it, to Farai, who shared with me some studies that data that were put together by OneQuantum, and he allowed me kindly to share them with you today. So these are just some forecasts of the market of quantum technology, and you see that probably a reasonable estimate is probably that within 10 years it will grow to around, let's say, 10 billion US dollars. Yeah, there are, of course, there are more optimistic scenarios that estimate it as much higher, but what is important for us at this moment is that there is kind of agreement that there is a market, yeah, and that's very good. Yeah, another interesting piece of information is where are the quantum startups? Yeah, quantum technology is a relatively new disciplines, and next to the well-established big global players, there is also an ecosystem of startups, and you see that the trend in the slides is that most startups are in building quantum computing hardware or developing quantum algorithms and quantum software. Yeah, and then there are, of course, other directions that maybe are more specialized. Yeah? If we look at it by country, yeah, and this again courtesy of Farai and his organization, we see immediately that Africa is not producing a lot of startups, and even if South Africa appears on this map, there might be maybe just one odd startup in South Africa operating in quantum technology. So you see that as an African continent, we are doing more or less on par with South America, and so that means we need to do a lot to catch up. Yeah? Partially reason for that is that not enough funding flows into quantum technology in Africa. Yeah? And if you compare, for instance, China has invested the last couple of years, and these are data collected by information in the public domain, yeah? More than 10 billion US dollars, yeah? Much more than Germany and the US together. Yeah? India has invested already $1 billion, and you're looking here for Nordic countries, $29 million, and Africa is probably a little bit further down the right. Yeah, so there is lots to be done to catch up. Yeah. This is also an interesting slide that summarizes private funding, so venture capital funding that goes into quantum technology investment, yeah? And that amounts already to more than $1 billion US dollars, and the number that you see here is without one big startup, PsiQuantum, yeah, that we will have to maybe discuss later as well. Yeah. Okay, so there is lots of money flowing. Yeah, so that's very good, and this shows where the money that flows come from. Yeah, and again, you see, Africa is a little bit in the gray area. Yeah, so we really need to do an African effort to change the mindsets of various stakeholders. Yeah. Similar to the slides before, where do the investments go per sub-disciplines? And again, you know, the biggest share of funding goes again in quantum hardware, yeah, followed by software and QKD applications, quantum communication, and sensing. Yeah? And you probably encountered already lots of hardware companies. Here's just a slide that summarizes some of the logos. Yeah? And what is interesting, you know, if you want to know where that funding goes, yeah, the biggest recipients are IonQ and PsiQuantum. Yeah, IonQ, as you know, is trying to be building quantum computers based on ion technology, and PsiQuantum is promising to build a quantum computer based on traditional silicon technology. D-Wave was one of the first players, a Canadian company, already raised lots of dollars. Yeah? And then there are other companies that you know, Rigetti, IQM, Cold Quanta, and so on and so forth. Yeah? So there is a whole ecosystem of companies that managed to convince already funders, to private funders, to invest in them. Yeah? In the software field, which probably has a lower entry cost, yeah? There are already also a whole ecosystem of companies. Yeah? I was lucky enough that one of the funders of Protein Cure was a former student, so that and another former student is and I think Xanadu was on the previous slide. Sorry, because it's a company that does a little bit of hardware and software. Okay. Where does the funding go in software companies? Yeah, the biggest recipient so far, yeah, and this is probably a few months ago, yeah, were Cambridge Quantum Computing and Zapata, followed by OneQubit, Riverlane, and a small an array of other companies that raised smaller amount. But you see, they also managed to raise some serious amounts of funding. Yeah. Let's look at who does quantum technology, yeah, and you see the statistic is not really representative of the African continent. Yeah, most quantum technology at the moment is done by white males, yeah, with probably 1/10 of females in the business. Yeah? So there is a lot that needs to be done in the quantum technology ecosystem to reach a little bit of more gender balance and a balance between various origins. Yeah? And African American and African is really a fraction of the total number of people, and we need to do a lot to change that. Yeah? Okay, this was the technology situation. Let's give a look at the more academic situation. Yeah, and this just for fun. I used the Web of Knowledge to look at just to start with, because I've done it before for another project. Yeah, the number of publications in quantum information processing and communication published in South Africa. Yeah? So you see, we started very early, 1975, and around the year 2000, we entered, like many other countries, kind of an exponential growth phase. Yeah, so that at the moment we produce roughly, let's say, 200 papers a year. Yeah, and if you are interested, I'm happy to share the search string that I used. Yeah. Okay, how does it compare to other African countries? Yeah? If you do the same exercise, yeah, the same search in Web of Science for other African countries. We see that the big players, South Africa, I just mentioned, Egypt, amazingly, is also producing a lot of papers in quantum information, quantum technology. Yeah. Followed then by Tunisia, Morocco, Algeria, Nigeria, Cameroon. Now, these are the countries that published more than 100 papers in the area. Yeah? There are many more countries that have published, let's say, between 10 and 100. Yeah? And these are listed here. Yeah? Ethiopia, Benin, Sudan, Botswana, Ghana, Kenya, Libya, Senegal, Tanzania, Burundi, and Mauritius. And then there is a whole lot of countries that have published less than 10 papers, but I didn't list them separately. Yeah? And this is very interesting because, you know, although the numbers pale compared to the rest of the world, it's a clear indication that there is activity. There is a healthy activity in research in quantum information processing. Yeah? Let's see, how do we compare with the rest of the world? Yeah? You do the same size research for the US, for globally. Yeah? And at the moment, the biggest producer of publication in quantum information processing and communication is the US, followed by China, that is quickly catching up. Then Germany, Japan, England, and if you sum all the publications from Africa, we reach this level. So we have lots to catch up. Yeah? And you know, if we want to compare our publication level, and now the scale changes here. Yeah? We produce, let's say, Africa in total produce, let's say, around 6,000 publications. Yeah? You see, we are at the level of countries like Iran, Switzerland, Brazil, Iran, the Netherlands, Israel a little bit less. Yeah? So that you know, if you normalize this per capita, we are not looking very good. We are not looking very good. Yeah, the only good thing is that you know that we are there. Yeah, and we are doing good stuff. We just need to find a way to boost the whole ecosystem. Yeah? Activities that and I slowly come to an end. Yeah, that have taken place since many years. Yeah? For instance, for the first time in 2010, we organized a Quantum Africa conference. Yeah, and that was really the aim to start bringing together people in Africa working on quantum technologies and related fields. Yeah? And we had already 5 successful editions of this conference, roughly every 2-3 years. Yeah? This year was supposed to be in Rwanda, but because of COVID, that hasn't materialized yet. But in interaction with the steering committee of this conference series, we have decided recently that we will organize Quantum Africa 6 as an online conference. Yeah, and we are finalizing the details at the moment, but it will probably be towards the end of the year, so end of October, beginning of November, or something like that. We just need to fine tune the dates with various stakeholders to make sure that we are not conflicting with any other major event. Yeah, and hopefully very soon we will share the call for the Quantum Africa 6 online conference for this year, so that we keep the rhythm going of having a big African quantum conference every 2-3 years. Yeah. Okay, so thank you very much for your attention. I hope I was able to give you a little overview of what's happening what's happening globally, and what's happening locally closer to home on the African continent. So thank you very much for your interest and for listening to the talk.